Hello and welcome to our channel today. We're diving deep into one of the most fascinating and student-friendly literary theories, reader response theory. If you have ever read a poem, story, or novel and had a completely different interpretation than your friend, teacher, or even the author's stated intention, then congratulations, you have already experienced reader response theory in action. But what is reader response theory exactly? How did it emerge, and why is it such a revolutionary approach in the study of literature? Let's explore. So, the basics of reader response theory. Reader response theory is a literary theory that emphasizes the role of reader in giving meaning to a text rather than focusing solely on author's intention or the structure of the text itself. This theory argues that literature comes alive through the individual experience of each reader. In simple words, the meaning of a text doesn't reside just in words on the page, nor does it sit in the mind of the author. Instead, meaning is constructed when the reader engages with the text. So, this is a dramatic shift from traditional approaches to literature, which often viewed the literature as a passive receiver. Reader response critics argue that readers are active participants, co-creators in the literary experience. Now look at the origins of reader response theory. So where did this theory come from? Reader response theory emerged in the 1960s and 1970s as a response to earlier approaches such as new criticism, which insisted on close reading, allocating meaning strictly within the text, without considering readers' background, emotions, or personal interpretation. It also pushed back against formalism and structuralism, which viewed literature as a system of structures in science, more like a puzzle to be solved than an emotional or personal experience. But reader response theory argued, what about the audience? Literature is not written to be placed in a glass box. It's meant to be read, felt, questioned, interpreted. This theory restored the importance of reader's mind, culture, mood, and experiences in the act of interpretation. Now, let us look at key thinkers and types of reader response theory. There isn't just one single version of reader response theory. Several critics and theorists have shaped it in different ways. So, Let's meet a few of them. First, we have Louise Rosenblatt, who introduced the concept of transactional theory. According to her, reading is a transaction between the reader and a text. The reader brings their personal emotions, culture, and memories, and the text brings its words and structure. Together they create meaning. She also made a distinction between afferent reading and aesthetic reading. Now, what is afferent reading? Afferent reading is when you read for information, like reading a manual or a textbook. Aesthetic reading is when you read for experience, like reading poetry, a novel, or a short story. Now move to next thinker. Next, there is Stanley Fish, a very influential figure in reader response theory. Fish emphasized what he called interpretive communities. According to him, our understanding of text is shaped by the communities we belong to, our schools, cultures, religions, or even our friend groups. In other words, our interpretations are never purely individual. They are influenced by the groups we interact with. Another key figure is Wolfgang Iser, part of German school of reception theory. Iser believed that texts contain gaps the reader must fill. This filling in of gaps require imagination and personal reflection. Thus, reading becomes a creative act. Each of these thinkers show us that reader is not just consuming a story; they are helping to make it. So now, like a look at certain applications and example. Let us look at a simple example to see reader response theory in action. Take Robert Frost's famous poem, The Road Not Taken. One reader might see it as a celebration of individuality, taking the road less traveled. Another reader might interpret it as a reflection on regret and the illusions of choice. Now, which reader is right? According to reader response theory, both are right. That is important. Must understand, because meaning is not something that is fixed in the poem itself. It's something that is created in the act of reading. The same text can mean different things to different people based on their personal experiences, beliefs, and emotions. This theory is also widely used in classrooms. Teachers who embrace reader response theory encourage students to share their own interpretations, discuss how literatures make them feel, and connect text to their own lives. This approach helps students feel more connected to literature and more confident in their reading skills. So, even after this, there are many criticisms of reader response theory. Of course, no theory is without its critics. Some argue that reader response theory opens the door to too many interpretations. If everyone's interpretation is valid, does that mean all interpretations are equally correct? Can there be any wrong readings? So these are a few questions that bother us. Others worry that focusing too much on the reader might ignore important historical or political context of a text, or even distorts the author's intended message. For example, if someone reads a feminist novel as supporting patriarchy, does reader response theory support that reading? Critics argue that without some boundaries, meaning can become chaotic. However, defenders of the theory argue that interpretations still need to be reasonable, supported by evidence from the text, and open to discussion. It's not about anything goes, it's about meaningful engagement with the literature. And the question of why reader response theory matters today. So why should we care about reader response theory in the 21st century? In our world of blogs, book clubs, social media, fan fiction, and online forums, reader response theory feels more relevant than ever. People are constantly sharing their personal takes on books, poems, films, and songs. Everyone brings their own lens, and that's something this theory recognizes and celebrates. It also aligns well with modern educational goals, promoting critical thinking, empathy, diversity, and self-expression. By valuing readers' response, this theory also helps us understand how literature can be a mirror or a window reflecting our inner world or helping us see into someone else. So now let us conclude. To sum up, reader response theory is a powerful reminder that literature is not just to be written to be analyzed, but to be experienced. It gives power back to the reader and embraces the idea that reading is a personal, dynamic, and transformative act. So next time you pick up a book or read a poem, remember your response is not just valid, it's essential. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into reader response theory, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. What's a book or poem that meant something personal to you? We would love to hear your response. Until next time, keep reading, keep thinking, and keep responding. Thank you.